Whoa, hit the brakes. You've arrived at the #1 drive-by for American history. Welcome to The Pit Stop. Brought to you by In the Past Lane, the podcast about history and why it matters. Here's Edward T. O'Donnell, your host and historian at large.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Pit Stop, your Monday morning source for history on the go in just about 5 minutes. We offer this mini-feature every Monday, in addition to our regular full-feature episodes. Here's what happened in American history the week of May 14th, 2018. Let's start with birthdays. May 16th is the birthday of William Seward, who was born in 1801 in Florida, New York. Did you know there was a Florida, New York? I certainly didn't. Anyway, Seward served as governor of New York and senator for the state of New York in the 1850s, and in 1861, Abraham Lincoln named him Secretary of State. And as Secretary of State in 1867, Seward negotiated the purchase of Alaska from Russia. May 16th is the birthday of Studs Terkel, who was born in 1912 in New York City. Studs Terkel was a writer and oral historian, and his best-known books were Hard Times, an oral history of the Great Depression, which he published in 1970. Also, Working, People Talk About What They Do All Day and How They Feel About What They Do, published in 1974. And The Good War, which earned him the Pulitzer Prize for General Nonfiction in 1985. Studs Terkel once said, "I've always felt, in all my books, that there's a deep decency in the American people and a native intelligence, provided they have the facts, provided they have the information." May 17th is the birthday of James Thomas Cool Papa Bell, who was born in Starkville, Mississippi in 1903. Cool Papa Bell was a center fielder in the Negro Baseball League from 1922 to 1946, primarily with the St. Louis Stars. He was widely considered one of the fastest men ever to play pro baseball. Bell retired in 1946, the year before Jackie Robinson broke the so-called color line. Nonetheless, Cool Papa Bell was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 1974. He once said, "They used to say, if we find a good black player, we'll sign him. They was lying." May 17th is also the birthday of Archibald Cox, who was born in 1912 in Plainfield, New Jersey. Cox was a lawyer and law professor who served as U.S. Solicitor General under President John F. Kennedy. But he's best known, of course, for serving as special prosecutor during the Watergate scandal. His firing by President Nixon in October 1973 marked a major turning point in the Watergate scandal and Nixon's downfall. Archibald Cox once said, "Watergate showed more strengths in our system than weaknesses. The whole country did take part in quite a genuine sense in passing judgment on Richard Nixon." May 19th is the birthday of Malcolm Little, better known as Malcolm X, who was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1925. Malcolm Little had a difficult childhood, and as a young man he was arrested for robbery in Massachusetts and sent to prison. During his incarceration, Malcolm Little discovered books and became an insatiable reader and learner. He also converted to the Nation of Islam. Upon his release, Malcolm X became a major figure in the Nation of Islam, and by the early 1960s, the Civil Rights Movement. He's often mischaracterized as an advocate of violence. What he did advocate was the right of African Americans to defend themselves when attacked, a position that put him at odds with the nonviolent approach of Martin Luther King. Malcolm X once said, "I don't even call it violence when it's in self-defense. I call it intelligence." He also said, "I believe in the brotherhood of all men, but I don't believe in wasting brotherhood on anyone who doesn't want to practice it with me. Brotherhood is a two-way street." May 20th is the birthday of First Lady Dolly Madison, who was born in 1768 in Guilford County, North Carolina. Okay, let's switch to events and anniversaries. What happened this week? Well, on May 14th, 1607, that's when the first English settlers arrived in Jamestown, Virginia. Also on May 14th, 1787, delegates convened in Philadelphia for a constitutional convention to write a new constitution for the United States. Also on May 14th, 1844, Samuel F.B. Morse sends a telegraph message that reads, "What hath God wrought?" And he sent this message from the Supreme Court chamber in the Capitol in Washington, D.C., to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Depot in Baltimore, Maryland. Morse wasn't the inventor of the telegraph, but he did invent the model that really took off. These days, we often think of the telegraph as a quaint, old-fashioned form of primitive technology, maybe a notch or two above 2 tin cans and a string. But the telegraph was one of the great revolutionary technological breakthroughs in modern history. As I say to my students all the time, the telegraph was the internet times a million. May 17th, 1954, That's when the Supreme Court of the United States issued its Brown versus Board of Education decision, declaring separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. And if you want to learn more about Brown versus Board of Education and the difficulty of implementing it, check out episode 40 of In the Past Lane, where I speak to historian Erin Krutko about her book, Remembering Little Rock. May 19th, 1962, that's when Marilyn Monroe sang a breathless and suggestive version of Happy Birthday to President John F. Kennedy at Madison Square Garden. The crowd loved it. The same cannot be said for Mrs. Kennedy. May 20th, 1927, that's when aviator Charles Lindbergh took off from New York aboard the Spirit of St. Louis, on his way to becoming the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic. All right, time for the last word. Let's give it to the Constitution of the United States, since we mentioned the convening of the Constitutional Convention. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay, people, that's your history fix for the week. Now put it in drive and go make your own history.